Going through extended periods of anxiety is never something that we want. It's not a welcome or enjoyable experience, and yet anxiety is universal. It's part of our human experience, maybe even just part of having a human body. So let's talk today about anxiety. I'll give you my little perspective of anxiety in a nutshell, a little masterclass on anxiety, including some very practical tools that you can put into place right here, right now, today. So welcome everyone. Let me ask you straight at the top of this video to like the video, to subscribe. It really supports the channel. I love to have comments down below and I try to respond to them. So please feel free to let me know what your experience is, where you're at. Let's talk about anxiety. So although there is a lot of chit chat about anxiety out there in the public sphere, we commonly hear people talk about having anxiety or my anxiety made me do this or doesn't allow me to do that. Let's talk about what anxiety actually is, because even the word anxiety sounds kind of pseudo-medical, pseudo-scientific, and really it's just a state that your body can get into, that everybody's body will get into at some point in time. There's a difference between having a state of anxiety and that turning into what we might call a disorder, an anxiety disorder of some kind, or having an anxiety problem that would be considered a diagnosable mental health issue. That doesn't mean that having just a state of anxiety or normal day-to-day anxiety or even recurring anxiety is pleasant or is nice, but there's just a difference. And some of that difference is in terms of how long of a period, how often we're having anxiety symptoms. When I say anxiety symptoms, they might be things that you readily recognize. Feeling of tension in our body, heart beating faster, breathing, feeling like we're holding our breath or we're breathing really quickly. It might be a state and quality of mind. Our mind is really racing, or we're spending a lot of time fixating on worries, or even very tuned out and distracted and having a hard time focusing. All of that stuff can be associated with anxiety. Also can affect things like sleep and our eating and even how our food is digested, all of that stuff. But what I find is interesting when I work with people, sometimes we just use the word anxiety, and when we really break it down, we don't even have a clear understanding about what anxiety is, and that it is a passing state, that we start to tune in with the anxiety. Even in the cases where we're having a full-out anxiety disorder, there's going to be a fluctuation in anxiety levels, moment by moment, day by day. That's not to dismiss anything, it's just to kind of bring some awareness into what we're talking about and potentially to give some hope that this isn't something you have to live with forever. Even if anxiety is very severe or it is at the level of a disorder, there's still a lot of hope, things you can do and little wiggle room here and there that you can create some different experiences for yourself if you're willing to look into it, be curious, and practice a little bit. So one way of understanding anxiety that I think provides a very accurate representation of what's going on when we have either one little episode of anxiety or even a lot of anxiety or an anxiety disorder is to think about anxiety like an alarm, like a fire alarm, like a car alarm, or maybe an intruder alarm in your home. So if you think back, everyone can maybe identify a situation where they could hear an alarm going off and yet there was no reason for it to be going off, and it went from, ooh, what's that noise? What should I do? To, oh, it's okay, you know? Anxiety is your body's inbuilt alarm system. It's like your body has been built with an alarm system that's gonna go off when there's a hint of something going wrong. Oftentimes, that alarm system just works unproblematically. We sense something in our external environment, or we start thinking about something that is troubling. We feel the effects of that alarm. It's almost like hearing the alarm go off in our bodies, in our minds. And we look around and we realize, oh, okay, it's fine right now. And we can kind of calm that alarm down. But most people at some point in their life will go through an experience where it feels like that alarm is continuing to run when nothing is happening. So it's like the fire alarm keeps going off when there's no fire. The intruder alarm keeps going off when all the doors and windows are secure. Once we notice that, it becomes very, very troubling often, and we can feel very annoyed by the fact that we're having this state in our body. It can start to interrupt things in our lives, interrupt our work or social life, just our general state of health. We can also become, understandably, highly fixated on it. Once we've identified, oh, this is anxiety, and anxiety is a problem. We feel this fire alarm, we've given it a name, it is anxiety, anxiety is a problem. We begin to try to fix the problem. And how do we fix the problem? Well, in most circumstances, we focus on it more. The problem with anxiety is it's the kind of fire alarm that is super, super sensitive. So if we start to focus on it more and more and more, we're scanning. Do I feel it? Do I feel it? Is there something to be anxious about or not? We can actually find that it gets more and more switched on. The other thing that can happen with anxiety is it spreads out. So sometimes we have a situation that is going to justifiably create some anxiety. Maybe you're going through some kind of loss or change in your life. Maybe there's some kind of big step you're having to take, big decision of some kind of tragedy, health concern, something like that. Something that is going on in the here and now that most people would say, yeah, that's a worry. I would feel anxious about that. And yet, when we're noticing the anxiety, might be we're going to the grocery store, or it's the middle of the night and we're trying to go to sleep, and that's when we're feeling anxious. And we feel like, gosh, what's wrong with me? Because that thing is not happening right here, right now, but I'm feeling the anxiety. Well, anxiety starts to spread. It's like the alarm starts going off at times when we don't need it. So I'm just giving that alarm analogy because I sort of want to demystify this experience of anxiety that, your body is great because it has a system meant to keep you safe and keep you okay. The difficulty is that sometimes its way of keeping us safe is either becoming way overactive, spreading out to other situations, or we are affecting that system, becoming hyper focused on it, and that can actually make it more sensitive too. How do we work with it? How do we work with anxiety to maybe lessen its effect on our life, to maybe help us live better with it, to navigate these circumstances? I think that it's very important for most people who are struggling with anxiety to know these two main ways. There's top-down ways of working with anxiety, and there's bottom-up ways of working with anxiety. How we can think about it is top, what's up here? It's your brain. Your brain is at the top. Your head is at the top, our thoughts. So things that are related to our assessment of situations, how we're thinking about things, how we're thinking about outcomes, thinking about ourselves, those are our top-down ways of dealing with anxiety. And we'll talk about those first. The bottom-up ways, we think about, well, what's beneath the head? The body. The bottom-up ways are all ways that have to do with managing the physical effects of anxiety through our breathing, through our body movement, through relaxation techniques that we can employ. But let's talk about top-down first. Top-down ways of working with anxiety, they require a little practice, a little curiosity, but if you're willing to invest that, you can really get a big payoff. You can discover a lot more about yourself. A lot of personal growth might be in this as well if you're willing to give it a try. So how you utilize top-down approaches is when you notice yourself getting anxious, or maybe you've had a really anxiety-filled day or week, take some time to reflect. Not necessarily what happened, that can be important, but more importantly is, what was I thinking? What was I thinking about that event, that thing at work, that thing that someone said to me, this thing that's coming up, that thing that happened in the past? What was I thinking? How was I thinking about the event, the situation, but also what was I thinking about my feeling, my anxiety? What was I thinking about my resources and my ability to cope, my belief in myself? Now, again, when we see a problem, we want to fix it. So be very careful here that you don't get drawn into excessive criticism of yourself and like, oh, why am I thinking that, or something like that. Just genuine curiosity. I just like this attitude of, I really want to understand what I'm thinking. Maybe even writing down these thoughts, not in kind of like a journaling kind of way where you're digging into each of them very deeply just yet, but just, if you notice you thought it, write it down. Just write down the statements, and then maybe just set it there. Maybe leave it for a little bit. When you're ready, come back and ask yourself a couple of questions about those thoughts, those assessments, those beliefs. Ask yourself, how true is it? How true is that thought? A lot of things are, even if they're mostly true, there might be a small little wiggle room of doubt. Maybe you can put a percentage on it. Maybe it's 70% you're sure that that's true, but maybe there's a 30% element of doubt. See if you can kind of get yourself into a place where you're open to the idea that perhaps not every thought is 100% true, or some things we just may not know altogether. So asking yourself, is it true? You can also ask yourself, how helpful is it? So even if it is true, how helpful is this thought to me? And is there a way that it could be more helpful? So that can be a tough one, but let me give you an example, right? Let's say that, I'm trying to think of an example here. Let's say my dog got sick or something, right? And in my anxious moments, I'm thinking, what if my dog doesn't get better? What if they don't get better? What if they don't get better? Hey, you know what? That can happen. Sometimes dogs get sick. That's upsetting. But in those moments, what am I actually doing by focusing on that? Am I making my dog get better? Am I having any effect on the future or even the current situation? No. Now, again, that's not to tell myself off, but just to notice, okay, if this is not helpful, what would be more helpful? So maybe a thought like, well, I'll do the best I can. I'll speak to the vet. I'll, spend some time with my dog. I'll, do something in the moment. Things that make you feel a sense of efficacy. You can probably change those thoughts to not necessarily make the situation feel great, but to change the level of anxiety that it gives you. And the third thing to ask, so just as a reminder, is it true? Is it helpful? And the third one to kind of ask is, even if it is true, even if something terrible is going to happen, what am I believing is my ability in a situation like that? So how could I handle it? So let's say worst case scenario does happen, something bad does happen with my dog. Yeah, what would happen? What would happen if I take that through? I'd be super sad. It would drive me crazy. And then what? And then what? And then what? And if I follow that through, it would probably come to a point where it's like, I'm sad. It's bad. But I probably would find a way forward. I probably would, somehow, some kind of way. So getting yourself to think in that way, that's like your top down. You're kind of taking those thoughts out and looking at them in the broad daylight and just trying to be super, super curious about them. Non-judgmental, just super, super curious about their effect on you, their validity, if there's a different way you could think about it, or you're missing any angles. Top-down ways of dealing with anxiety, these are going to be generally useful when your anxiety is at a lower level. So if you think about a scale of anxiety from 1 being, I'm mildly worried about something, to a 10 being full-out panic attack, worst anxiety ever, these top-down ways of working are going to be pretty useful when you're in a 1 to a 5. So, if it gets above 5, normally that alarm is going to be way too loud for the thinking process to happen, and we're going to just have to put that off to another time. So when it's 5 and above, then we want to think about bottom up. So we want to think that at this point, the anxiety, aka the fire alarm, is so loud that we just need to find a way to cover our ears and make ourselves kind of safe in a way. And what we can think about, what anxiety is doing in the body. What anxiety is that interface between what we're perceiving, our assessment of the outside world, and also what's going on in our head and our body. So being very clear that anxiety is not just some kind of psychological, mental thing, but it is a physical response. Your body at that time is preparing you that if there was a fire, if there was a threat, if the alarm was, needed at this point, that you would be able to have that muscle tension and that heart beating fast, so you could either run away or you could fight for your life, or you could go into a state of almost like detachment. So whatever bad stuff was going to happen, you could kind of survive that without feeling too much pain or distress. So that's what your body is doing. How you can help it at that point when that fire alarm again is 5 and above, it's feeling very, very anxious, is by working with the physical systems of your body that we have a degree of control over. Not every system in your body that is affected by anxiety, you're going to have a degree of conscious control over. So for example, like your adrenal glands, you can't necessarily just consciously switch those on and switch those off. But you can work with your breath and you can work with your movement, and that stuff can eventually start to help the other systems in your body that are responding to that fire alarm, that anxiety. So breathing when we're anxious, we're going to be holding our breath. We're going to be maybe tight through our breath, just breathing into the top of our chest. We may be breathing very fast or taking a lot of inhales and not very deep exhales. So in order to work in this bottom-up way, we want to really think about slowing the breath, bringing the breath deeper, and maybe exhaling a little bit longer than we inhale. Sometimes it can be very useful. That's why you see that, what do you call it, that kind of, I can't think of the word now. When someone puts a paper bag over their mouth and are hyperventilating into the bag, the idea of that is that you can see how much you're exhaling, and that eventually is going to calm you down. And you don't need a paper bag, but you do need to exhale more. So that may be just through the mouth. Another way to do it is to put your hand on your belly or on your ribs so that you can feel, am I bringing my air deeper in, and then make the exhale more full and long so that you create more space to bring more air in. There's a lot of really uncomfortable effects that you're going to get when we're taking lots of inhales and not deep enough or long enough exhales. It's just going to come from that kind of carbon dioxide inside, that kind of lightheadedness, that fuzziness can really just be fixed by breathing more efficiently. The disappointing thing when we're mid-panic attack is we just want that off switch. We just want to turn that fire alarm right off, but it's going to take a few breaths and some patience. So if you can, maybe get yourself to a quiet corner, maybe go to the bathroom, really focus on your breathing. Legitimately, it could be tough to do that because your mind wants to run, your body wants to run. That's why you can add in a little bit of movement too. So sometimes just adding something in where maybe you're inhaling, the shoulders roll up, exhale, the shoulders roll down. So it kind of just brings you back into the here and now, or anything. You could inhale, squeeze the fists, exhale, release them. You could move the chin down as you exhale and the chin up as you inhale. Anything to kind of bring you back into a sense of connection and control over your body. What you're going to be doing is not just helping all the systems that are in that high alert stage to kind of come back into regulation slowly, but you're also going to be reminding yourself of your self-efficacy. I am safe. I am okay. That's another reason why people sometimes do like tapping or something, or have something like a fidget thing or something to cuddle or hold, is it just brings you back into the here and now. So 1 to 5 level of anxiety, maybe practice with your top down. Level 5 and up, maybe practice with your bottom up. And see it like skill building, right? It's like learning to do something new. It's not going to be this instant quick fix, but if you're dedicated to feeling better and you're willing to give it some practice, you will gain a lot of control and a lot of power in these 2 ways. Obviously, if you need a bit more help, support, there's lots of wonderful places to get that. You can look online, you can get books, you can reach out to someone like me or one of my colleagues. You can drop a comment down below. I even have my email address listed down below, and if it's something that you don't want to put in a public forum, you can send me an email directly. Just have a little bit of hope and faith that this thing called anxiety is something that your body is built to have. It's built to deal with. It's an inbuilt fire alarm. As inconvenient as it is, you have the power to do something with it. So I hope that this is just a little tiny nugget that can help you with your experience. I would love to hear from you. And until next time, be well.